Until I started to make this film, I knew nothing about foster youth, even though I was once one myself. One of the few things my mother taught me before she died is that life is unfair. Like other foster youth, I was not included in the decision to put myself in foster care, nor was my placement any result of my own doing. My 65-year-old aunt with high blood pressure and diabetes was ill-prepared to take care of her 13-year-old. One night, during a fight, she signed me over to the state. A week later, I was living with a new family, strangers to me, an hour away.
I think the hardest thing about being in foster care is that you do really lack like the adult support, and you don't have that comfort of when you go off to college that your mom or dad's going to go with you and that they're always going to be there to support you. You're just kind of on your own, and it's hard at times. It's really lonely. I spent the last 10 years looking for the perfect family, the mom and the dad and the little sister or brother. I just kind of had to come to accept that my life is different.
I don't think there's ever a moment that comes to people who have experienced such dysfunction where everything is honestly 100% at ease and comforted and supported. Because even when you're doing really good and people want to be a part of your life, there's still those moments when you're sitting down in your bed at night and you're wondering, am I good enough for all this?
I turned myself in after my 17th birthday because my mom is addicted to heroin and cocaine and crack. Growing up, I used to cry myself to sleep, and I used to, before I come home from school, I would ask, dear God, please don't let her be high today.
Sometimes people ask me, how did I get to the place where I was? How did I survive? When I started reflecting on that question, it did make me realise and think, gosh, yeah, actually, a lot of the kids who I grew up with are dead. Some of them were dead by the time we were 15. What was it that made me come through?
It's really hard to be outed queer in foster youth. I've had group home staff tell me that they're not going to put the new girl in my room because I might rape them in the middle of the night or something. Or I get a lot of weird comments like that, and not everybody's as educated, so they don't really know that much about it. And there's a lot of people that are hurt. Sometimes I think the best way for people to cope with their own hurt is to hurt others. And it's really easy when that's such a big society-hated thing. It's like saying, hey, come pick on me. It's like a stamp on my forehead, but I'm comfortable and I can smile with who I am, so it's worth it.
I have heard about people being kicked out for being gay in foster homes. There's a foster home I was at where I wasn't out yet, but she was just hesitant with the fact that I had a friend that was bi. I remember having to ask if I could see her or talk to her, and all the other kids were not okay with it, and so I'm sure if I would have come out then, I would have been kicked out sooner than I already was.
When I was identified as a lesbian, they would not let me be in a room with a closed door with any of the other girls who I lived with. Everybody else, they could do anything they wanted, but as soon as I would go in a room, they'd make a big scene. They made me feel really uncomfortable by being a lesbian. I felt that it was really hard because they made it seem like I was just trying to turn everybody out. It wasn't even like that. They were all my friends, and half of them were already lesbians themselves, and they just never made it clear to any of the staff that's what they were. It was hard enough that I just left a family. Even though it wasn't stable, I felt like I was already unaccepted, and there I was being put into category to where I couldn't even close my own room door. And it's supposed to be transitional housing. This isn't a group home. This is the step in between foster care and becoming an adult.
I'm here to introduce our last awardee, which is Savannah. The work that she has done for this community is not only inspiring, but I know there are so many people that learn from her every day. Please come on up here, Savannah.
It was amazing, the amount of people that wanted to be around me. When I was up on the stage emceeing shows and winning awards, it was amazing, the amount of people that wanted to shake my hand and tell me how great of a person I am. And that was the most purest feelings I felt in a while that had anything to do with positivity. But life throws you curveballs all the time. There's hurdles that you constantly have to jump. And when they came back into my life recently, nobody wants to be there, and nobody wants to shake my hand, and nobody wants to tell me how great I'm doing. Instead, it's way easier to jump to the negative sides, and that's how the system cheated me the most. Because these people that it took so many years for me to finally trust, I finally started doing it in these last couple years and trusting adults again after years of shutting everybody out and building this enormous wall around myself. And because I'm not on stage anymore, and because I'm not up there doing all these things that they want me to do or that they want to be a part of, to share the success in, to be part of the inspirational adults that, helped me climb out of it. It's your typical lifetime story.
85,000 youth in our foster care here in California. We take these children from their homes out of concern for neglect and abuse, but once we take them from their home into our care, we're failing them. Fewer than 50% of our children in foster care are graduating from high school. Within years of emancipation, we see that about a third are on welfare and 25% are incarcerated, and another third find themselves homeless and unemployed. A fact that I share with people that makes their mouths drop is that 70% of our prison inmates have spent time in our foster care system.
I did live on the streets, and I ended up, so I went to the main women's prison at the age of 15 for shoplifting, that kind of stuff. When I came out, somebody who had looked after me in one of the children's homes I was in offered to foster me, and she had a lot of opposition about that because, I was this kid living on the streets, always getting in trouble with the police. And this woman, she was somebody who really believed in me and saw me and saw the whole of me, didn't just see the person who lived on the streets. She saw also that behaviour was a symptom of my distress and struggle.
As I take a deep breath and spit my first line, my fears are presented. As I reminisce on how when I was a child I hated math and I even skipped class to avoid numbers. Now as an adult I hide behind these car windows that are tinted to avoid numbers, more like AK-47s and Tech 9s and 38 millimeters, yet you still have the courage to ask me, why is it that none of your poetry is positive? And I say, because you don't know what the fuck I've been through. See, walking down memory lane, I gasp for air, watching my mother drown in a man named Heroin and her bringing me down with her. I see her getting beaten by dope men while I hide behind walls that confine me, which are the same walls that my mother face hits and the same walls that my mother screams confide to. I feel like I represent a lot of things, and sometimes it's hard because physically looking just fully African American. So when I go to class, people see me as the leader or the spokesperson for African American race. And I know when I talk about, in foster care, I experienced this and this, I'm the spokesperson for foster care youth too. A lot of times people question me, even about being a foster youth, about living in Hunters Point. And well, how was it for you? I heard a lot of things about that. Did you get raped in foster care? They ask questions that they hear on TV or they stereotypically believe. Out of 30,000 kids who go to Cal, there's 20 of us. So we are really little. We do amount to a really small percent.
I was at Reed during the holidays, it was kind of hard. Holidays just in general aren't good for fosters. It'd be hard on like Thanksgiving or like parent weekend. And you'd hear kids complaining about how their parents were there and they didn't want them there. I wish my dad, who I don't even know his name, would show up, or someone. They're just not grateful at all. That was really hard. I'd like avoid the dining hall because I didn't want to go in there and see all the other parents sitting around their kids and hearing kids complaining about the care packages they would get. Like, I didn't really want this. I didn't get a care package. I would have loved a care package. Like, the people that really are the closest to me are other fosters. Me and Savannah have lived together for a lot of years, off and on, because we were both in this county and both moved around a lot, both in foster care a long time, and never really got that perfect foster home. She was one of the first kids I'd met there that had actually had a decent amount of experience in foster care under her belt. We were the only ones that could actually hold an intellectual conversation, stay up all night playing gin rummy and pissing the staff off. And we had some ups and downs. It is hard being a foster. There's a lot of issues that go with that. Like, all of us have our problems. The thing is we all know each other and we know that and can accept it because we've seen it. Like, we understand where it comes from, where someone else might not get why they have that attitude or why they're acting that way. To us, it makes sense. It's like, oh, you're being a foster.
It was like our own little family type of thing. Even if all the kids didn't get along all the way, all the time, they still cared about each other at the end of the day, and that's what made that group home feel like a home. So that doesn't happen in facilities. After I left, they wouldn't let me come back. And those kids don't think I care about them anymore. And it sucks because I'm another adult in their life that just left them. And that was never my intention. Recently, I've been homeless in Santa Cruz, sleeping outside a lot, sleeping in the caves, off the cliffs. For the first time in my life, I wasn't able to take care of myself.
Summer was really hard because I didn't have a place to stay. So I stayed in my car, or I went to my grandma's house, which was really hectic. I stayed there for a couple of days until I couldn't deal with it anymore. And I'd go to my best friend's house for a while. The summer, I was just so happy when it was over.
I do not think a 19-year-old can find a place pretty easily in Santa Cruz. The rent's really expensive, and a lot of times they want credit checks and stuff. I don't have any credit. They want previous rental history. I don't have that. They want a cosigner, and on a lot of the forms, it's not even called cosigner. Like, CSC form is called parental guarantee. What am I supposed to do with that? So there's a lot of places I just ignored because of that. I'm like, well, I can't do that. And a lot of the people who are my supports are the fosters, so guess what? They don't really have credit or any of that either, so it's not really going to do me any good. That was really hard, and it was hard, just finding a place. I didn't even know how to email them or anything. I didn't know how it worked. I didn't know any of that. My ILP worker, she helped me send out the first few emails just so I could, get an idea of what to say and what's going to happen, and then I called, went to a couple places, look at them, and then sometimes people weren't even there. They'd leave a note on the door saying the room was already rented. After I traveled all the way over there, I don't have a car. I have to take extra time to be able to get to these places. But eventually, this one just happened to come around. They liked me, and it's the first one, I snagged it.
Sometimes I just lay down and cry. I tell my girlfriend, you got to keep talking to me because I think about everything I've been through. Every couple of, weeks I have this emotional breakdown, but I feel like it cleanses me out. When I hold it in too long, it's going to break. And once it breaks inside of me, it breaks you. It doesn't just break that, it breaks everything, your soul, all of that. And I don't want that to happen. And it's happened before. I've been broke down and I tried to commit suicide. Instead of saying, oh, well, my life is perfect now, I go to UC. And instead of doing that, I acknowledge that where I came from still affects me today. But it's you have to know your own strength. By me writing poetry and by me crying a lot, that's what keeps me strong. That's what keeps my poker face going. I'm at school, I don't need to tell everybody, well, this is all my problems. You have to blend in this world because if your flaws are a little bit different, then, you sort of fall short. And I don't want that to happen.
how to co-parent a child. I don't know all the right things to do. I couldn't tell you all the steps I want to take or I'm supposed to take, but I know exactly what not to do, and I know what could be the worst and what is the most detrimental to a child, and I know what could really just tear someone down, and I know how to stay away from it. So I might not know everything that you're supposed to do in life, but I know what you're not supposed to do.
I think every kid who's been fostered somewhere doesn't love themselves, and it's nothing to do with us, that the fact that we didn't grow up with our biological parents. The biggest thing for me was I realised that I had to take responsibility for me. I just felt that the world owed me something, and that just didn't get me anywhere. Suddenly woke up one day and had this realisation and thinking, well, people can say, poor Valerie this, poor Valerie that, but I have to do something, to change my lot, really.
For a long time, I pretended I never was in foster care. I was really lucky to not be homeless. If we knew more about foster youth, there would be less negativity around foster care and a greater chance at success. Foster care saved my life.
America's Most Unwanted. This is for the foster youth who grow up in hella homes, location of birth, parents unknown. You can't choose who your mommy will be. What if she was hooked to the drugs at 16? You got the power to rise on up, rise on up, rise on up. You got the power to rise on up, rise on up, rise on up. Foster youth is turning into a buzzkill word. That's because the people really aren't sure what it means to have strength and resiliency at the age of 15. Life experience is where it's at. Sometimes more badass me a Harvard grad. Preaching to the choir when I say the system is fucked, but it gets you inspired. Let's give hella more love. You got the power to rise on up, rise on up, rise on up. You got the power to rise on up, rise on up. You got the power to rise on up, rise on up, rise on up. You got the power to rise on up, rise on up. Shout out to my homies, making documentaries, getting PhDs, going to law school, changing policy to get the youth off the street and into the university. In America, hella unnoticed, all of the twist, battling out with the hypocrites. Fake evangelists invested in marriage, while foster you get treated like an unwanted miscarriage. I have a hard time facing all the people I've been hating. To the fat kid on the bus eating Cheetos, sipping 7-Up. I'm sorry, I judge a lot. You got the power to rise on up, rise on up, rise on up. You got the power to rise on up, rise on up. You got the power to rise on up, rise on up, rise on up. You got the power to rise on up, rise on up. This is for the foster kid, kicked to the curb by your 55th placement. You slept in streets, church basements. Focus on the family, ain't about you and me. If you live on the street, hug trees. Be a masculine chick or something like bisexual. Then all the people act like you're poisoned by the devil. Jesus said don't judge others until you walk into their shoes. Politicians, you don't shit about the foster youth. Most foster youth find on the street cause they lack the smarts or the creativity. You got the power to rise on up, rise on up, rise on up. You got the power to rise on up, rise on up. You got the power to rise on up, rise on up. You got the power to rise on up. You got the power to rise on up, rise on up, rise on up. You got the power to rise on up, rise on up. You got the power to rise on up, rise on up. You got the power.